October 23rd, 1987 is a day that my next guest will never forget. It was the day her life changed forever and she lost the most important person in her life. Welcome, Marcia, to 100 Huntley Street.
Thank you.
Take us back to October 23rd. Started like any other day.
Any other day, except this was unusual. I was working as a nurse, and I received a phone call early in the morning to come in to cover a shift because somebody was sick. And so I said to my mom at that time, I'll drive you to work. We had moved across the city to get away from my stepfather. And so I said, I'll take you to work and then I'll head downtown to the hospital. And, rushed out of the house, and we're on the 401. And I saw my stepfather, which is unusual. 401's quite busy, and it's 6 o'clock in the morning. So anyways, we ignored it, and I arrived at my mom's workplace, which was the Holiday Inn, just off the 427. It's now torn down, but it had a circular driveway. And
Before we go any further, let's get some context. So you and your mom were very close.
correct, I was her only child, and so I was her baby.
Yeah.
And so everything was Marcy. And, so it was just the two of us until she married for about 8 years. And, it was an adjustment having a stepfather, but we continued to have a very close relationship.
And so you said that you had to move away from your stepfather. What exactly?
Right. And so he became increasingly aggressive in the latter part of the marriage. And then one day they were having a fight. And then, of course, being the daughter, I stepped into it. And at that point, he assaulted my mother and then assaulted me. And then, that just says this is now a serious occasion.
Yeah.
And so the police was called. Of course, he was not happy about that. And then there is now a restraining order against him from coming close to us.
And so how did your mom handle that? Just, obviously a man that she loved and then all of a sudden a severed relationship.
Right. So she was afraid. And in that fear, she kept things from me. So I did not know the depth of how he was calling and threatening her until afterwards. And even with the restraining order, I remember one day he tried to get into our apartment with a crowbar.
Wow.
And that's what prompted, that we needed to move. But because we both worked in the city, how far do you move away?
And how does faith play a role as you fear for your life? Someone's trying to break into your residence with a crowbar, you're fleeing from something. Does faith play an aspect in that?
Well, at that point, I did not know Christ. I had grown up knowing that I had to give my life to God, but I was going to do that when I was much older, because I thought that those who followed Christ were boring and they didn't have any fun.
Yeah.
And so I had put that off. It was in the back of my mind. But at that time, basically I knew God existed, but there was no relationship with God. And,
So we go back to October 23rd, and again, normal day. You decide you have to go into work. So you decide you're going to take your mom to work first.
Yes, yes. So I drove across the 401, head down the 427, and everything changed that day in my life.
So he was there in the parking lot. Take us through those moments.
Right. So there was a circular driveway, so I pulled in at the entrance to let my mom off. And as soon as I did that, he pulled in his car. And so now our cars were now facing each other. And I turned to my mom and I said, I'll just reverse out. And she says, no, Marcy, I'll just go see what he wants. And then I decided I wasn't going to leave until she was inside the building safely.
And when was the last time you saw your stepfather?
Well, other than being on the 401 and just noticing his car beside us, we had noticed him outside the apartment building that we were now living in. And, just looking over and just, seeing him walk. And so we knew that he had followed either my mother or myself to now know where we lived. And, so we were unsettled with seeing him there, but because you're in this huge condominium building, we didn't think that he would find us and certainly didn't think that he would be following. I don't know how many days or how long he would sit out there waiting for us to leave. But obviously, he followed either her or myself from our places of work to know where we now lived.
So your mother steps out of the car to talk to your stepfather, and what happens next?
Right. So at that point, I put my window down about this much because I wasn't going to leave until I knew she was safe. And they began talking to each other. And within a few minutes, he pulled out a gun. And he fired twice at my mother. She fell to the ground. And then he turned and fired twice at me. Instinctively, my hands went up into the air. And having done so, the bullet went in my right arm and shattered my right elbow. And then second bullet went into my left shoulder and basically came out in my arm. And yeah, and then he jumped into his car and drove off. And so I'm now sitting in the vehicle, and I didn't feel any immediate pain. My arms were just numb, and I struggled to open the car door. And
We're going to take a quick pause. And when we get back, Marcia's mother is lying on the ground, injured. Marcia is wounded as well. But what happens in her life next will shock you. Stay with us.